All right, 7.5, analyzing the graphs of quadratics. So we focused in on quadratics last time. So now we want to look at their graphs specifically, okay, and start breaking down some things that are special about them. We like to do this with every function. We did it with linear. So now I want to focus in on these. In upper levels, we look at some other ones. We look at rationals. We look at square roots and all those other different types of things and see what's happening with them. Break those things down a little bit more. We're actually going to investigate some other polynomials in the next unit as well. Okay. Now today, as far as the definitions go, I'm going to kind of like I did in 7.2. I'm going to go back and I'm just going to display the screen that's in your notes and Canvas for those in my course. For those of you that are just watching this from a different school or somewhere else that's trying to get some education, then you may want to pause once I bring up the definitions and copy down what you have or do a screenshot of that so that you have that material to work from in your notes. Okay, so let me share my screen so that we can see those pieces. And again, I do apologize if you can see me in the little video in the corner there. Off to the side, that's where my computer is. It doesn't stretch any closer to the board and the way the camera is set up. So I know that I'm just off screen there, but we're more focused on the paper on the screen, okay? All right, so we have a couple of definitions, and it's all about how is my equation set up. In our first one here, if my equation is set up in this form, a open parentheses x minus h close parentheses squared plus k, that is what we call vertex form. And so the reason it's called that is because we can straight take the vertex from the equation. Now remember that the vertex is either the lowest or highest point of the parabola for those, okay? And so that gives me a lot of information from those. Now, our part A here, I skipped over. If A, this little value in front of my parentheses, is greater than 0, my parabola, it's going to open up. So it's going to give me that U shape opening up. If it's negative, it's going to open down. So it's going to be more of a hill shape. Okay. Now the peak or valley is the vertex, and we get that from HK. So we're going to look at how to do that. This equation, x equals h, is the axis of symmetry. Remember, symmetry or axis of symmetry is that line that we would fold our paper back in elementary school so that the picture landed on itself. So that would be our axis of symmetry. And then K has a minimum value if A is greater than 0, or has K as a maximum value if it's less than 0. So we'll look at those again in a moment. We'll clear those pieces up, all right? Now, if it's in our standard form that we're used to seeing, ax squared plus bx plus c, we can still find all of those things. The a value still tells me whether it's up or down, so that doesn't change. But finding my vertex is a little bit different. We have to use this formula. Negative b over 2a gives me the x value. And then f of negative b over 2a gives me the y value. All that means is I find the x value, and then I take and I plug that back in to the equation to figure out what's going on with it, okay? And so you'll see me do that when I'm working these problems, all right? And then that x value is the axis of symmetry, and the y value is your minimum or maximum value, okay? So we're gonna pick apart all those pieces in just a moment so that we can analyze these graphs, okay? All right, so let me stop share there. So let's get to our examples so that we can kind of bring home what we just talked about, okay? Right, so examples. All right, number one, we're going to have f of x equals 2 times x minus 4 squared minus 1. And we want to find the following things. Now, some of your homework problems are not going to make you find all of these things. Some of them may just tell me the graph. Some may ask for bits and pieces and then tell me the graph, and those types of things. But we're going to go ahead and do all of them so that we know how to do all the pieces, okay? All right, so the first thing we always need to find is the vertex. So I'm just going to kind of put a line there. Then we need to find the axis of symmetry. Then we need to tell, is it a maximum? So this one kind of is a two-part. Is it a maximum at a value, or is it a minimum at a value? Okay, for this. So we will pick which one. We'll either circle the maximum, or in this case, I'm just going to fill in the blank with the one that it should be for those. Okay, and that's what you may have to do in your homework as well. Okay, you may also have to tell the range. Okay, and so we'll look at those. And then finally, we're going to have to graph it. Okay, so I'm going to put that over here for those we're going to have to graph. Those are all the things that we're going to have to do for these problems. All right. Now, these things do tell us some stuff when we're starting to look at them. So I want to break those things down just the way they are. Okay. So when I look here, we see this, hopefully, since we see the parentheses, we recognize that's vertex form. So I need to use the information from vertex form. Okay. Now, things from the vertex form, this number here, this is going to be our H, and this is going to be our K. And we do need to talk about a couple things in just a moment when we get to writing that in. And then since this is positive, this tells me my parabola is going to be going up and down. And that's going to be a key when we are graphing it, making sure that it's going the right direction so we graph our points properly. All right, so for my vertex, it's an ordered pair. The X value comes from here. And we do have to be careful there on that. So if we go back and look at our formula says X minus H. Okay, so X minus H. So that means we're actually going to do opposite here. It says minus 4. My X value needs to be a positive 4. All right. Inside here, it's always going to be opposite for those because the formula has a negative in it for those. So minus 4 means positive 4. It said plus 4, we would do negative 4 as my X value. Okay. My Y value of my ordered pair, now it said plus K, so we take this as it is. So negative 1. All right, so we get 4, negative 1 as my vertex. Now, the good thing here is a lot of the rest of this stuff tells me some information. First of all, the axis of symmetry is always an equation, X equals, that's going to come from right here, X equals 4. Okay, so it comes directly from my vertex. Now we just need to know, is it a maximum or minimum? Well, when we look here, for a maximum, it would need to round off. These go forever, so there is no maximum value. They keep going up forever, which means there's a minimum value at the bottom. So we're looking at a minimum, and it's going to be at the Y value, negative 1. Okay, so there's a minimum at negative 1. All right, and then finally for my range, before I go to graphing, for my range here, the good thing is range talks about Y values. We've already said our lowest Y value is negative 1, and then we said it went up forever, so negative 1 to infinity. And it's always going to have that bracket on the number. We talked about that in previous sections. Okay. And so that allows me to fill in those pieces. This maximum was blank because we didn't choose that for those. Okay. All right, so now we need to graph. Now for graphing, we need a couple of points with those. We may need 2 or 3. I'm going to always do 3 points here for those. And to do that, I'm just going to do a table of values. And so I'm going to create a table here. We're going to have X and Y. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw a quick sketch of a graph here. Okay, we'll fill in our dashes in a moment. Now our vertex should always go in the middle, 4, negative 1. This is my vertex, and I'm going to have to plot that first. So plot first. Okay, every time for those. But we need points on either side with those. And so I'm just going to pick 1 on either side, 3 and 5. Well, we just plug those things into our original formula up here. So 2 times 3 minus 4 squared minus 1, and we work that out. So 3 minus 4 is a -1. -1 squared is a positive 1. 2 times 1 is 2. Minus 1 is 1. We're going to see that we get the same thing because this thing is symmetric. But if we plug in 5, we would get the same results with those. And that'll always happen if you're the same distance. Know that from 3 to 4 is 1, from 4 to 5 is 1. So we're always going to have that symmetry to it. Okay. All right. So now we can plot our points. So I need to go out to 4 or 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I don't even need to worry about the other side because I don't have negative x values. Your computer will have what you need on it. All right, let's plot the vertex first. So we go over to 4, -1. And then we can plot the others in either order. And there is my parabola. Now, make sure that when you're graphing that, it's a U shape if you're graphing it on paper with those, so it doesn't go to a point. There's not a V to that piece, but that's what it's going to look like there on those. Okay, so all those pieces are a possibility on these problems. So make sure that you're looking at all of them. Okay. All right, I'm going to erase the bits and pieces here that we did in blue. So give me just a moment. And I'll erase the equation because we're going to need a new one. And I'm going to go ahead and erase the whole graph because we'll need a new one. Right. All right, our next one. So we'll just use f of x again. It doesn't matter. This is number 2. X squared minus 8x plus 12. All right, now we can still know that it's going to open up or down because our a value here is a 1, it's positive 1. So it is still going to open up. So we're still going to get that U shape to it. But now we need to find the vertex, our x value is going to be that negative b over 2a that I talked about previously. And so here, negative b, or b is negative 8 over 2 times a, which is 1. Well, we do that, that's 8 over 2. 8 over 2 is 4. So again, it just happens that it's 4 here. My first x value is 4. Okay, so I'm plugging into that formula. Now we're going to take that 4, we're going to plug it back into our equation here. So to get y, we're going to do 4 squared minus 8 times 4 plus 12. Okay, and you can put that into your calculator, that's fine for those. Again, I don't have a calculator, so 4 squared is 16. 8 times 4 is 32. So that's going to give me negative 16 plus 12 is a negative 4 for those. We'll make sure, I'm going to check my answer key over here just to make sure that I did that correctly in my head. So negative 4, I did. So that's good. Okay, so that's my y value there. Okay, so that's how you're going to utilize that formula to be able to find your vertex. You use the negative b over 2a, plug it in, work it out, simplify it as much as you can, and then take that answer and plug it into your original equation to find the y value. Well, now our axis of symmetry is always x equals the x value, which is 4. You do need to put x equals. We know it's opening up, so there's a minimum value at the y, so negative 4. And since it's a minimum, it goes up forever, So -4 to infinity with the bracket next to the number. Okay, so those things, we always get that right from the vertex. So the vertex dictates all of that stuff underneath it. All right, so let's now again do our table. So X, Y. I'm going to put my vertex in the middle and then pick numbers on either side. And as long as I don't have fractions in it, I can do that. Just each one of those. We'll look at our next one. I'll have some fractions, so we'll talk about what we can do there. All right, so let's plug 3 in. So if we plug 3 in here, we're going to get 3 squared minus 8 times 3 plus 12. Okay. All right, so 3 squared is 9. 8 times 3 is 24. Negative 24 for those. And so 9 plus 12 is 21. Minus 24 should be a -3. This 5 should give me the same thing, but we can check our work for those. Okay. But if you go through and check that, you will get the same thing. Okay. All right, so now we need to graph those table values. So this time we need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down there. It's all going to end up down in that bottom. So we don't need to go a lot of other places. We plot that vertex first. So 4, -4. And then 3, -3. It should be up just a little bit. And 5, -3. And there's our graph. Okay, so it's just applying all those different rules that we've been looking at throughout. Okay, get a drink of my coffee and then I'll erase. All right, let's do one more so we can see that again, and then we'll be finished up for today. All right, so here's my other marker. Again, here, let's look at f of x equals x squared over 2 plus 4x plus 6. All right, so I just happened to pick all of them to go up. This is positive, so it's going up. So if it was negative, we would be going down. You'll have some that are negative. Okay, it's not going to change any of the rest of the problem. It's just going to make sure that we graph it correctly when we're doing those pieces. All right. Now we can see we have our form here, so we need x equals, it's that -b over 2a. So -b, b is 4 over 2 times a. Now we have to be careful here. Notice this is a fraction. Really, that's a 1/2 when we're looking at that a value there. Okay. So now we need to simplify that. Well, half of 2 is 1. And so we get -4 for my x value. Then we plug in -4. So y equals -4 squared divided by 2 plus 4 times -4 plus 6. Again, you can put all that in your calculator if you would like to be able to work that out. Just be careful there when you're doing that on those. So we're going to get 16 divided by 2 is 8. We're going to get -16 here. So that's going to give me -8 plus 6 is -2. Okay. All right, so that lets me know my axis of symmetry is x equals -4 this time. We're still going up, so we do have a minimum. And so that's going to be at -2. And since we're going up, we're going -2 to infinity. All right, now we do our table, x and y. Our vertex is -4, -2, but this time, because we have the fraction, we want to be a little more careful. If I put in an odd number in this case, or put in 3 and 5, we're going to end up with some fractions. That's going to get ugly. We don't want to do that. So since this is a 2, let's just go 2 from that. So we're going to go here to -2 and -6, and we're going to plug those in. All right. If it was 3, we'd go 3 away from those pieces. Okay. All right. So we're going to get here -2 squared divided by 2 plus 4 times -2 plus 6. So that's going to give me 4 divided by 2 is 2. That's going to give me -8. So 2 plus 6 is 8, minus 8 should be 0. Okay. All right. And so the bottom one's going to be the same. It's symmetric. I am writing the equation there, though, so that you can see the math. You can work it out that way as well. All right. So let's plot those. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so our first one here, we plot the vertex 4 first, so -4, and then to -2. You need to go a little bit further out there, not thinking. And then at -2, 0, -6, 0. And there is our equation. Okay. So it's all about breaking those things down, knowing what form do I need to use to find the vertex. The vertex is going to give us the information, and then we can plot our points from there, knowing those bits and pieces. Okay. So make sure you get in and practice those.